Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Non Sequitur Nerds. Tonight, we're going to need you to put the kids to bed a little early because we're talking games that are not meant for kids. As always, though, I'm Tim, joined by Ian. How's it going, buddy?
Hey there, buddy. It's going pretty well. Things are moving along at a clip. We are very quickly approaching summertime here in the Midwest,
Yes.
which means that it is humid as hell and everyone
Oh
is
my
in
God.
perpetual swamp ass.
Like, you can tell when you hit the Midwest because everybody says, if it wasn't for this humidity, it wouldn't be too bad. When you hear people say that, you are officially in the Midwest. You know you've reached the point of no return.
Right. That said, I do have a coworker that lives in Arizona, and he is um, very, very much tired of the old idiom. Well, it's a dry heat, at least.
Right.
He, according to him, it doesn't matter. When it's 120 degrees outside, you still want to die.
Yeah, I imagine. That's kind of unbearable for me.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so we are on to a new week and a new topic.
Mhm.
And as Tim mentioned, we're talking games that are not meant for kids. Now, this doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean not safe for work games. We're not talking about,
I mean, although many of them fall into
eroge.
that category.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's well, I mean, if you're gaming at work, then more power to you.
I mean, yeah,
Um,
I wish I could.
Yeah, me too. But
I mean,
again, if
you have a
you're
better chance of it than I do, Mr. Work from Home.
true, I have been known to like sit there and just like read manga during my lunch break. So
Nothing wrong with that.
right, but yes. Anyway, we're talking games that are not necessarily safe for children, probably not safe for work, but not necessarily erogy adult
Yep.
porn games.
The kind
Some
of
of them
games
may.
you have to get on the internet that you can't find in a store. These are games that are readily available well, some of them are digital releases, but these are readily available on various retail fronts
Correct.
where you can find other non-adult games. So,
Hmm.
but I guess
So with
I was gonna say
yeah, go
I'll,
ahead.
I'll start it off tonight. You usually do. The first one is kind of a gimme given the source material. Um, the South Park games, specifically the Stick of Truth, which is oddly a really well done RPG game set in the world of South Park. But since it is a game instead of being a broadcast thing, they can get away with a lot more on the game than they can the broadcast version of South Park. Um, I mean, South Park. I mean, needs no further explanation. Really, it is very raunchy. It is very politically charged. It is very topical. And this game nails all those things. The basic premise of it is you get to play as your own character. The new kid moves into town, and if I remember right, they actually did like a couple episodes based on like either lead-ins to the Stick of Truth or its sequel, the Fractured Butt Hole. That's two words. Stick of Truth and the Fractured Butthole. Um, I just realized if you put those two together. But anyway, you play as the new kid who moves into town, and the kids are playing like a fantasy game, and it turns into like the whole like Alice South Park. The whole town gets involved in the shenanigans, and it turns into this long-winded like stereotypical RPG quest with South Park flavoring. Did you ever get a chance to play them, Ian?
I never did myself. So, really, like the last South Park game that I played, and there's not very many, was the
Yeah.
N64 one where you got to
Oh.
throw, piss laden snowballs at your
Yep.
friends.
I
Um,
remember that one. I think we played that together a couple times. I think.
yeah, I believe so. But yeah, I didn't really, I didn't play Stick of Truth. I've heard very good things about it. I've seen people play it.
Yeah, it is
I
it is
just,
surprisingly very solidly put together. I mean, even taking the South Park humor out of it, it is a very well put together RPG game. I mean, there's various classes. All of them have different abilities. There's different equipment you can get, different weapons, different like
right.
spells. Even I mean, pretty it's pretty good. I mean, but definitely, as with South Park, definitely not kid friendly. And I think this is probably one of the more tame ones on my list.
Yeah,
Sadly, when I say
yeah.
that South Park is the tame one,
Well, but yes, it's definitely one of those that's it belongs on the list. Don't let your kids near it unless you let them watch South Park, but in which case, then consequences are on you.
Yeah.
Um,
Be an
so
observant parent.
yes. Anyway, all right. Well, we'll take one from my list. This one's kind of an older classic, which has quite a lot of entries under its name. But I figured I'd throw it out there anyway. I haven't heard of a new game in this franchise for quite a while,
All
but
right.
Leisure Suit Larry.
Yes, I my sister, you know her.
Yes.
One of her first experiences with PC gaming was the original Leisure Suit Larry. She worked years ago. One of her first jobs was at a obviously now defunct local video rental store, and the owner there, who I'm pretty sure this guy made some kind of pact with an eldritch demon because he was old, like when I was little. He's still alive and is still like working on computers and still like up to date on like what's happening in tech. I he made a pact with Eldritch Horror. That's the only thing I can come up with. But he's like, yeah, you can, on your break if you want, you can play a game on here. I got a couple on there, and it was all Leisure Suit Larry games and and the original Duke Nukem. Um, yeah, those games are definitely not for kids. And my sister was like 16 when she played them, so I think that
And
kind of
it
says a
was
lot
a
about my
pivotal
sister.
moment within her psychological
Yes, it
development.
was. Yes, it was. The basic premise of all the Leisure Suit Larry games is you are Larry, the self-proclaimed ultimate ladies man, and all of his sexy shenanigans. Um,
Yes.
I will say that the newer ones in the series that they released like for Xbox are tame by comparison. And if you have played, what was the first one? Magna Cum Laude, which is you're playing as
Yes.
Larry's nephew going to college, and I actually played a good bit of it. I thought the game was hilarious. Um, if you've played that, that is tame compared to the originals. I mean, that's saying something because
Right.
that game has a song and dance number about somebody. This goes without saying. This is not a safe for kids episode, but there's a whole song and dance number set to one of the songs from Greece, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, about somebody's dildo and having sex with a lesbian.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it's
and
in a
the
mini
other
game.
right, and the other fun thing about Leisure Suit Larry was that Larry always looked like the underside of a work boot. He
Yeah,
was not an attractive human being at all, yet he was still, the penultimate ladies man
yeah,
and could bed everyone.
and
He could
he
have
did.
gotten Mother Teresa to take off her
I mean,
clothes.
yeah, he could have. He really could have. Like
So,
just like obscenely smooth in his complete and total awkwardness is like,
yes.
yeah. Um, putting him in the game, involves what you think it would when it's a game about a dude trying to bed whoever. There's sex, there's drugs, there's drinking, there's the whole nine yards. But like the original games, if I remember right, were point and click games, a
I
la
believe
like
so.
like the Monkey Island games almost.
Yeah.
The
I
newer ones were more
think
like
weren't
free roam. What's that?
Yeah. Wasn't who was the original developer? Wasn't Oh, Sierra Entertainment.
Yes. Okay. They're not even around anymore.
Not that I'm aware of. Um,
They got bought by somebody who got bought by somebody, if I remember right. It's been a while, but yeah, I mean, they used to be one of the bigger names, particularly in the PC area.
yeah, so Sierra was originally called Online Systems, formed in
Oh
1979,
wow, so they
and then they
around a while.
rebranded to Sierra Online from 1982 to 2002. So,
They were around still in 2002. Wow, I thought they
yeah,
went defunct way before that. I
they
mean, I
went
say that was
under
20 years ago now. Oh my god.
yeah, they sold out, or they were purchased by CUC International, not sure who that is, in the
Hang
90s,
on.
and
So the
then they
guys that
were
made Leisure Suit Larry were bought by Cuck International.
yes.
Okay. Okay.
And
The
then they
irony is
were
not lost.
purchased yeah, then they were purchased by Vivendi, and
Yeah, that's right.
Then Vivendi was,
Activision
went
bought them.
yes,
Okay.
well, they basically kinda, like, went under, and then I think their catalog was purchased by Activision,
Okay.
then revi a lot of their IP was revived. But uh,
I mean,
yeah,
Sierra, if I remember right, didn't they make the Wing Commander series?
it sounds
That
familiar. I
that
think
sounds
so.
right. I mean, I know that like Sierra, they were a well-known name back in the day. But yeah, Leisure Suit Larry, it's an interesting game. Again, not safe for kids. That one definitely falls into the not safe for work category.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
So let's see. Oh, they did Frogger.
Oh, okay. So I mean, that is if you even have a passing familiarity with gaming, you know who Frogger is. The
Correct.
frog.
Correct. That gets run over by cars.
Yes.
King's Quest.
Oh, okay.
Let's see what else do they got. Uh, hmm. Space Quest 6.
Not one I'm familiar with.
Nah, not one I'm familiar with either. Let's
I mean,
see. Well, we don't have to.
did they do Space Quest 1 through 5?
I don't
Or
know.
is the
Lords of
game
the
just
Realm.
called Space Quest 6?
It's called Space Quest 6.
All right.
Robert E. Lee, Civil War General.
Oh my gosh.
Apparently the franchise is just called Space Quest 6 because they have other games underneath that. But yes, then
Okay.
Leisure Suit Larry, Urban Runner, Lords of Magic, Eat My Dust. That's a new one. Cyberstorm 2, um,
A
Half
classic.
Life.
Well, that.
Uh, they worked on Half Life with Valve.
Okay. Okay.
I had forgotten about that. It was kind of a yeah. PGA Championship Golf 1999 edition.
Oh my god.
They worked on Homeworld, if you remember that game.
Well, it sounds familiar.
If I remember correctly, it was kind of like a. It was almost like a StarCraft slash Command and Conquer type knockoff,
Huh.
like
Okay. Well, there were a
RTS.
lot of those. There were a lot of those back in the
Yeah,
day.
yeah. Let's see, Zeus, Master of Olympus. So
Do
yeah,
you
I mean,
just do you just
anyway,
go
they're
around humping everything?
that's kind of what I was thinking. It was an offshoot of Leisure Suit Larry. Um, uh, anyway, so yeah, they that game has been around for a while. It was an interesting game.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, yeah. Oh, they worked on Crash Tag Team Racing.
Oh, okay.
Published under Radical Entertainment, but still had Sierra. That was one of Sierra's brands.
There we go
So
then.
yeah. All right. Well, what do you got?
Well, next up on my list is a game that I think needs no introduction. Anything in the Grand Theft Auto series. And like, I'm trying not to make this whole video into years of pent up GameStop frustration of going, okay, do you know what you do in this game? Yeah, they play it all the time. Oh, they see that on TV all the time. Oh, they see worse in the bus. You Does your child's bus have prostitutes? Because I apparently didn't go to the same school that they did.
Well,
Um,
you have to remember where I also grew up, right? That my neighbors weren't exactly the best people.
well,
Um,
across the road, you mean?
yes.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think I know some of the people you're talking about, not personally.
Mhm.
But no, okay, Grand Theft Auto.
No, he knew them professionally.
It was purely business, Ian. It was a business transaction. Services rendered. Um, but okay, Grand Theft Auto. Again, this is one that even people that don't play games know of Grand Theft Auto, mainly because of a lot of the media attention that it always gets when a new titled sequel comes out. I mean, it's the game is larceny, auto theft, murder, prostitution, drug dealing, gun running. I mean, you name a crime, and it's in there. It is a crime simulator.
Adult crimes. There
Yes,
are
yes,
there are crimes that they don't go
yes,
into.
yes.
Um, yeah,
Yeah,
the
there are some of the rather unsavory crimes. We'll keep it at that.
yes,
They don't touch on. Um,
yes. Poor choice of words.
I hate you so much. But it is Grand Theft Auto is at its core a crime simulator. You play typically as a preset character following along the story. Although the newest game in the series, Grand Theft Auto 5, did introduce a online multiplayer, which is still very successful for them, and they're still releasing a
Mhm.
lot of new content for it, even years after its release. Um,
Grand Theft Auto 5's basically gotten the Skyrim treatment from Rockstar.
yes,
Like
or is
they haven't created a new Grand Theft Auto game in probably 10 years.
it's
And they just
just shy
keep
of there. 2013 is when it came out.
yeah, I mean, and they just keep like re-releasing it for new platforms.
Yep. Although I will
It's a
say
shame that they
the
can't. It's a shame that they're. It's probably good that they haven't tried to remaster it because
yeah
their last remaster failed miserably.
yeah. Although I will say that the PS5 Series X version of the game looks pretty, very pretty. Um, but yeah, the online multiplayer in Grand Theft Auto 5 was a first because you got to create your own character and effectively have a role play crime simulator. You got to do whatever you wanted, like any of the stuff that was available at various points throughout the story, you could do in the multiplayer, or you could just run around shooting people. Or there are people who surprisingly play the game as pacifists. They just go around, experience the city, drive following traffic laws, and just live as a effectively as one of the random NPCs in the world. Which is interesting. There's people that do like I will occasionally, when I'm playing Grand Theft Auto, just start following traffic laws, like stopping at red lights, not speeding, just for giggles while I'm goofing around. But there's people that's their entire online character is they just go around doing stuff like that. But then I mean, there's others that form like crime families, do all kinds of different various less than legal activities. Um, but yeah, it's unique. This one is particularly unique in the sense that also in the single player there are three main characters who all have their stories intertwined quite a bit, but they all have their own separate like things that are going on, which again was another first for the series. But the game, even when it came out in its original release, was a visually a very impressive upgrade versus San Andreas, which is the one before that. And that's even going from like PS2 era to like PS3, Xbox 360 era.
Well, San Andreas. I mean, there was GTA 4. You were forgetting.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forgot about GTA 4.
I mean, it was a big jump in as
Oh
far as
yeah,
like the series capability.
just the overall scope of it for sure.
Yeah, the overall scope of it. It definitely. I mean, if I remember correctly, the GTA 3, GTA San Andreas, GTA. What was the in between one that was set in the 80s?
Vice City,
Vice
which
City. I mean,
I like.
those were all like past gen console versions. I think they were all like 360 and
Like
Xbox 360,
PS2, yeah.
PS3, PS2, PS3, PS2 generation games. So those really didn't get any kind of I mean, they were all very limited by the hardware from 20 years ago. So when they went to GTA 4, which was considered, that next gen console, it's hard to uh it was a big uplift, but
Oh,
then
for
obviously they've
sure.
been but anyway. So yeah, I mean, not to dwell too long on those series. I
It's
wanted
again,
to
it is a very well known one. That I mean, it's again, there were so many times when I was still working at GameStop that we would tell parents, okay, this game's ready to mature for this, and this, and a lot like it was funny because like just as many parents going, oh yeah, it's fine. But then I would get a lesser number of parents that would stop, stare at me, slowly arc their head down to their kid, and the kid would just be sitting there, oh god, oh god, like you were going to let me buy that. You are grounded, and then they would just walk out.
well, guess who's getting the Barbie game for Christmas?
Yep.
But anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and toss one out there,
Okay.
which is one that you and I actually played a bit of together when
Oh,
they did the re-release.
okay.
Um, One that certainly looks very innocent
Hmm.
within the spirit of the larger development and universe that it existed in.
Okay.
Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Oh my god, I love that game. I love that game.
Conker's Bad Fur Day, developed by Rare,
Mhm.
the studio based out of the United Kingdom. They were very famous back in the 90s for doing a lot of Nintendo games. They
Yes.
created the Donkey Kong Country franchise, Donkey Kong Country Racing. They had a
Jet
veritable
Force Gemini.
pantheon. Jet Force Gemini,
Yep.
yeah. They were a powerhouse of Nintendo games back in the 90s.
The
They were,
Banjo Kazooie. I mean, they
yep.
have their own. They have like the Rare Replay collection. Go and play that on your. I know it's on Xbox. I don't know if it's on PC or anything, but go
I
check
think
that
it's
out.
only, it might be on PC,
Yeah,
but yeah,
it's
yeah,
got
check it out.
a
It's
lot.
on
Like
Game Pass
every
too,
game on
so
there is phenomenal. Every single one.
yeah. Yeah, Jet Force Gemini was one of those games that I played, and it frustrated me when I was a kid because the control scheme was really goofy.
Yeah, but it was a good game
Um,
though,
but yeah, it was a really good game.
for
But
sure.
anyway, Conker's Bad Fur Day. So you play as the titular character of Conker, the squirrel,
From Diddy Kong
in the
Racing.
from Diddy Kong Racing, in sharing this universe, and you come to find out that Conker is an ass
Yes, a
and a
drunken
drunkard.
belligerent ass.
Yes, and is full. The game is fully voice acted.
Yeah, which was
It
rare
is,
for an N64 game.
right. Cinematic cutscenes, but yeah, you play the part of a drunken squirrel, making his way through the world trying to rescue his girlfriend,
Yep,
and everything is just overly sexualized in a very cartoony way.
the
Uh,
sunflower.
this I was just thinking,
Yeah.
you work to seduce a sunflower so that a horny bee can mate with it.
Yes.
Um, there is the Great Mighty Pooh boss.
Which is
You
the greatest
literally
boss in all of video game history.
you literally fight a singing pile of crap. And you defeat him by throwing toilet paper in his mouth.
Yep.
And then there is the stove boss. That if you remember, Timothy has brass balls, and you defeat him by smashing his balls between bricks. So, this is obviously not a kid's game, but it was so acerbic and so fun and so weird. And the re-release added a multiplayer
Yeah, which was
that,
kind of a surprise for a lot of people that they added a multiplayer to this game, but it's a la Call of Duty. Well,
yeah,
more akin to Battlefield back in those
yeah,
days.
yeah, yeah, more akin to Battlefield. Like it was a war. You picked a class and it gave you certain weapons, and then you went out and fought. It was the squirrels versus the teddies, I believe. They were like animatronic teddy bears or something. Um,
Right.
so yeah, it was
And
just
yeah, and it was so many people like they made it a point on the box of that game to like overly highlight the mature rating on it,
yeah,
which was like now in the era of Switch, we see a lot more, you know, I don't want to say adult themed, but more mature rated games on the Switch than you have on any other Nintendo console. Back in the N64, there were maybe a small handful of mature rated games. And Conquer was one that it really, I mean, it pushed the envelope on what you could put in a game without getting that dreaded adult only rating, which means you do not get a physical retail release back in those
right.
days. But like I remember when that game came out, I was at my very first job at KB Toys. I was hired specifically to be like their video game ambassador because everybody else that worked there were all like 30-plus year olds who had no interest in gaming and knew nothing about it. Well, I had been going there for years to get my games, and when I turned 16, they're like, "Hey, want a job?" But like when that came out, like I remember we had to have a training course about what a mature rated game is and what the policies are for selling mature rated games. And like we had to like keep that game behind the counter. It was not in the general, at least at my store anyway. I don't know if this was true at every KB. It wasn't in like the general display section. We kept it behind the counter, and there was a big like posted warning thing that says, "Please note, despite the cartoony nature of this game, it is absolutely not for kids. It contains the following: is like blood, gore, violence, sexual content, swearing. Like I mean, it was like a huge list, and like we were all properly instructed on what to tell people about this game, and it still sold phenomenally well. At least at our store. I mean, we never got a whole lot of games there, like as far as quantity of individual titles, but it sold pretty well. I
I
remember
mean,
like
if you even go
yeah,
back and look at, it released in back in 2001, so the game's over 20 years old at this point. But I mean, it still boasts a 92 Metacritic
I'd
score.
believe it. I mean, like,
So,
despite all its goofy, like overtly adult tones, it was a solid platformer.
yep, yeah. I mean, it was a fantastic game. It was so much fun and
Oh
so
yeah,
acerbic and weird, and like Tim said, it definitely pushed the boundaries
yeah, it did. Yeah,
of
it
a
did.
lot of stuff. But and what to finish this off, the lore behind it as well is that it was canonically in the same universe as things like Diddy Kong Racing
Hmm.
and Donkey Kong Country.
Yep.
It's just that Conker had to participate in Diddy Kong Racing as part of his like parole or community
It was,
service.
yeah, something like that. Yep.
So yeah, they canonically said that he had to be good for those as part of a lawsuit. So there you go. Alrighty, well, what do you got, Tim?
Well, one that is not as mainstream as some of the others we've talked about, but one that I have actually played because I watched a streamer play it, but they had to heavily censor it on their stream. This one goes from the realm of games that are available but not safe for kids into the realm of it does still have a retail release, but and I've heard it called two different things: Honey Pop or Hooney Pop. I've heard it called both. I personally think it's Honey Pop. Honey Pop is at its core a match the color and shape puzzle game. Simple enough. I've always enjoyed those because they're just simple time wasters. Honey Pop adds in you're familiar with the game. I can tell from the look on your face. Honey Pop adds in a let's call it dating sim to it. You can get the game on Steam. There is a fully uncensored version that you can patch into it. Um, the long and short of it, match puzzle, get nookie. I mean that's pretty much the game, but it's done in a I want to say like National Lampoon style of comedy to it. Like it's very if Porky's was an anime. I mean that's it's that kind of humor. Yeah, it's they had it has at least one sequel to it. I actually watched Markiplier play it because somebody had suggested it to him. And he's like, okay, this is outrageous enough. I'm going to try it. He had to censor the video of it. He had to and he was even playing like the stock censored version.
Right.
He still had to censor that because even the stock censored version, like if you and I were to stream that, we would get banned like within 30 seconds. Yeah, I mean it's like I will say this. The art in it is actually pretty good art. The character designs, like they're all like obscenely varied. But at its core, it is a match three or more puzzle game. Something that you wouldn't
Okay.
expect to get out of a definitely more adult associated game.
Fair enough.
I had to throw
I'm
at least one of those on this list.
well, we did cross the realm into erogi
Yep.
game, so
So that means you
you
have to have
know
one now.
I have never purchased one of those, nor do I plan on it.
You're right.
I am
You
not
hear that?
that
He's
lonely.
never purchased one. Notice the
Never even
distinction there.
played one. I'm not that lonely, for crying out loud, man. Give me a little bit of credit here. Moving on.
All right.
So I think we'll go ahead and wrap up with one more.
All right.
But I'm going to take one. I have a list here, but I'm going to take one that's been around for quite a while, and also um, one that's definitely much more mainstream, but people probably wouldn't necessarily think about right away when you
Okay.
talk about games that are not safe for kids.
All right.
Um, Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. I would agree with that one. Like when I
Yeah.
when I think games
So
that I wouldn't let my kids play, that's not one of the first ones that pops up.
yeah, but as we think about games that are probably not safe for kids around, our children's age, Mortal Kombat is one that would inevitably come up after a little bit of Google searching.
Yeah.
It is a fighting game for those of you that don't know.
A
It's your
very well
standard,
put together fighting game.
very well put together fighting game. It's been around since the 90s. And kind of pushed the boundaries when it first came out too. You know,
Yeah,
was one of the original release, I believe, was on both the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis.
that's it. The Genesis
Um,
version was superior.
Correct. Be part of that being because Nintendo wouldn't allow the use of gore on their platform. So when people were getting punched, they just had what they claimed was spit
Yep,
um, or sweat fly off of them, whereas in the Genesis version, it was definitely red and very much blood,
yep.
very much so blood. Um, but you know, they popularized the concept of things like fatalities. You know, being able to literally rip apart your opponent at the end of the
Brutally,
match,
brutally rip apart your opponent.
brutally. You know, they brought in things like animalities, babalities, friendshipalities,
Friendships. Yep.
which was something that was popular that, you know, a lot of other games started adopting. You know, King of Fighters, Killer Instinct,
Yep.
all of those fighting games, you know, really started going for the more hardcore fighting style. And then, of course, as the games have progressed on and on, you know, with better graphics, they have gotten much more brutal and visceral,
Yes.
and the women have less clothes, more clothes as time goes on. It kind of
Depends.
depends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they got really kind of lambasted at one point for I think maybe eight or nine in the series.
Yeah.
They like the women, the female in the franchise, females in the franchise were very scantily clad, and
Yeah.
they kind of took it on the chin there. For everything else that Mortal Kombat has
Right.
pushed, it was too much skin that really kind of shoved it over the edge. Some of
Yeah.
the later series have, while their female characters are generally still sexy, they are much more clothed.
Yeah.
Um, in later versions. But yeah, I mean, a
More
whole
more
pantheon of different
appropriate for a fighting
characters.
tournament.
Right, for a fighting tournament, even though, again, they're still brutally and mercilessly ripping people apart
Yeah.
in various fun and interesting ways.
Yeah.
You know, has spawned several movies, franchises at this point. The originals from back in the 90s when we were young. The new version, which came out, which Tim and I did a review on back in season one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go
We
check it
did.
out if you haven't. It was, you know, actually a very enjoyable movie. And then they've also had
Oh,
TV series, like a cartoon series.
they have confirmed. I was actually reading this earlier. Johnny Cage is going to be in the sequel.
Sweet.
There are several actors I already hope get cast.
Yeah, the one of the obvious ones that comes to the top of my mind when people say Johnny Cage and his personality and everything is Ryan Reynolds, but in reality, I don't want him to play that part.
Yeah.
I like Ryan, but I don't think he is the right fit for Johnny.
I would either like the two that come to mind for me is the first one is anybody that's a wrestling fan, The Miz. You know, former reality TV star, and you know he's a wrestler, so he is so that makes him an actor too. Let's call it what it is, folks. So he's a trained fighter and a trained actor. He's been in several movies as well. So I mean, like, and much like Johnny Cage, they've all been like B movies. So like, I think he would be a great fit. My second pick, and I think he is almost too old to play this intense of an action role at this point. Nicolas Cage. But you can put him in anything at this point, and I'll watch it. But no, yeah, yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of adult oriented games. We didn't even touch on some of them. Like I had on my list. Let's see. I'll just go through some of them super quick here. Conan Exiles, a game where you can fight as you were born, butt naked. Let's see. There was also House Party, a game about house parties and all that entails. One that I wanted to mention but I didn't. Genital Jousting, and that game needs no explanation. It is literally what you think it is. But I mean, the long and short of it is, I mean, there are games out there. There are games that are family friendly. There are games that are certainly not family friendly. There's games that aren't even friendly to say that you've played to your friends, like Honey Pop. Um, but it just goes to show that there's games for everybody.
Yeah, I would
That was my
agree.
super quick soapbox.
Yep. Really kind of the moral of the story, folks, is, you know, like Tim said, there's a lot of games out there. There's stuff for everybody, but there's definitely things that aren't kids friendly.
Yeah,
So, you know, the ESRB and you know, the various rating systems, Peggy, if you're over in the UK,
Sero if you're over in Japan.
Yes, all those rating systems exist for a reason. And while we enjoy freedom and things like that, we're also parents, so we do
Yeah,
understand that there's definitely some things that we don't want to expose our children to right away.
yeah,
So shop and present responsibly.
yep.
Enjoy games, but
Be
keep an
smart.
eye on what it is. Yeah, be smart and kind of keep an eye on what it is that you're doing with what your kids are doing.
Yeah.
So that'll be kind of the end of my soapbox. But anyway, so I think that'll go ahead and do it for us. So we will wrap up for today. And thank you for joining us as always. We appreciate you being here. Stay tuned for new episodes every Monday, dropping at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, I believe is our scheduled time.
Yes.
Yes.
Hasn't
So
changed.
hasn't
That's the one
changed.
constant on the show is it always posts at the same time unless I forget to hit click submit.
Correct. But as always, you can catch us out on the interwebs as well. The podcast is hosted on anchor.fm, which feeds out to Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and several other podcasting sites. You can catch the recorded videos on youtube.com/non sequitur nerds and catch us on our social media, facebook.com/non sequitur nerds, Twitter at non sequitur nerd, assuming Elon Musk doesn't buy it,
Yeah,
and twitch.tv/non sequitur nerds. And I think that's all of them.
I think so.
So, as always, we thank you again and hope that you tune in next time.
Okay.
No,
I don't know.
did, okay. Anyway, apparently someone was doing Scatman on the around. Moving on. So yes, we hope you all have a good night, and we will catch you again next week. As always, for the non sequitur nerds, I'm Ian.
And I'm Tim. Night, everybody.